This is Audible.
Swamp Blood, Guns and Boys Book 4. Written by K. A. American. Narrated by Nathan Kelly. Chapter 1. Mark. If Mark were asked for the definition of dive bar, he'd just describe Chuck's Bar and Grill. He'd try to go in later, but it got so loud whenever someone opened the door that he preferred to stay outside for now, even if the air made him sweat from the heat. At least he had a bit of entertainment, courtesy of Fred, the knight in shining armor Mark had been waiting for all along. Handsome, helpful, smart with his own business, Fred was just the kind of reliable older guy who could give him a new start in life, even if he was a bit boring, and 20 years older than Mark. "How long till you make it here?" Fred asked in a short text message, complete with a smiling emoticon. Mark was ashamed that some days he made so little progress in his journey, but it was a long way from north to south, and not everyone was keen on taking a teenage hitchhiker. Mark's last ride left him in this middle of nowhere, as the guy was going back to his wife. "I'm in the area, probably a few more days, saying goodbye to my life of no good." Mark lit himself a cigarette and sat down on a wooden bench just outside the bar. Even the smoke couldn't kill the stench of stale water coming from somewhere close. The air was so humid his lungs felt heavy. "Bummer. I hope to invite you for a nice dinner with friends this weekend," answered Fred. "Oh yeah? Gonna have some nice grilled sausage?" Mark snorted and pulled out his earphones when the roar of a bike drowned out his music. He looked up from his beat-up phone to see a tall, muscled man dismount a beastly-looking sport bike. He was far too good-looking for the dirty, smelly dump behind Mark's back. It was almost as if the guy drove here all the way from the set of a music video to pull Mark away from his new life at Fred's side. The phone beeped again, but Mark was too preoccupied to care about the reply, as the biker god moved his way. He took off his helmet, revealing a shaggy bush of dark blonde hair, and as he got closer, Mark also noticed stubble that he'd love to rub his hands all over. His muscular arms were tattooed and dusted with blonde hairs, and he had several inches on Mark. When their eyes met for a short glance, Mark's heart skipped a beat. Would he stand a chance? Even straight-ish guys rarely refused a BJ. The biker missed a step, and his eyes darted away, only to return to Mark's face a second later. "What?" he muttered in a thick southern accent. Mark slipped his tongue from between his lips as his breathing grew shallow from the proximity of that strong body. Even the Louisiana heat wasn't too much anymore. Not many of the guys Mark had scored on the way here were this attractive. "You alone?" he eventually asked, stuffing his phone deep into his pocket along with Fred's words. The boring life could wait a few more days. The blonde frowned, and even in the faint light from the bar, Mark could see his eyes were as blue as the sky over a tropical island. Fuck, he loved blondes. "What's it to you?" the biker grumbled and glanced at the bar, but Mark could swear that when he turned back his head, he took half a second to check Mark out. The air in Mark's throat was so hot it burned him on the inside, but he couldn't stop himself from going for his prize. "I'd suck you off if you want. It's $50, but I'd take 30 from you." Mark watched the pretty piece of man with his eyes wide open, but a part of him was ready to run if needed. It wouldn't be the first time, but this guy was too good to miss out on. It was always better to regret doing something than not going for it at all. The biker took a deep breath that made his chest look wider under the white t-shirt he was wearing. Mark could swear even the guy's nipples got more visible. "Do you live here?" he asked in the end, not moving by an inch. Mark exhaled, his whole body softening with relief. The biker had taken the bait. He was afraid someone might know, but Mark wouldn't tell anyone. He prided himself with how discreet he could be when he wanted. "No, just passing through," he whispered, and it seemed that even with the background of loud music coming from the bar, the biker could understand him easily. "Let's go somewhere else," the man said and turned toward his bike. Mark had to bite his lips not to grin too hard at the outline of Blondie's wide shoulders. Truth be told, he'd suck a guy like him for free, but every opportunity to make an extra few bucks was good. He now had less than $10 in his wallet, and if he wanted to reach Fred's home within the week and start sleeping in a normal bed, he'd have to step up his game. He nodded, even though the biker couldn't see him anymore, and followed, throwing his backpack over his shoulder. The guy put